It's that time once again. October is here, and if you've kept up with this channel at all, you'll know that cool-ass Halloween Town gothic shit is one of my core aesthetics. Being born in the 90s and growing up in the 2000s to 2010s, you couldn't escape the goth and emo wave that filled angsty teenage kids. I talked about this extensively in my Soul Eater video. How things like The Nightmare Before Christmas and Beetlejuice caused a mental awakening in the minds of young kids that watch them growing up. And for me, this right here is my jam. I've loved this dark, moody bullshit since I was like 9 and still do to this day 20 years later. It speaks right to my soul. And one of the best places to find stories that appeal directly to that part of my brain over these last 20 years has been manga and anime. I've talked about Soul Eater like I had said, Dorohedoro, Hellsing, Bleach, series that are core to the teenage through young adult in the 2000s mindset. And in the comments of both those videos and others I've done, one series has constantly been recommended for me to cover over and over, and for a few reasons, it's one I've kind of hesitated doing. It's like a big ass shadow hanging over me that I want to dive into, but I'm also just kind of nervous I'll slam my head into a wall trying. So today, I said, fuck it, let's give it a shot and talk about one of my most favorite shonen series and manga in general. A legendary story that's dominated the minds of fans for over 20 years now, and despite it vanishing for some of those years, still has a dedicated and strong popularity to this day. The series, of course, being D.Gray-Man, the long-running journey of Alan Walker still sweeping people up in its storm to this day. Written and drawn by one of my top mangaka in the whole game, Katsura Hoshino. So, to start off, D.Gray-Man was created by, like I said, Katsura Hoshino, a certified cat lover and obvious goth-style appreciator. Hoshino has had two other short series before D.Gray-Man, one being called Zone and the other Continue, both featuring a big evil demon-like dude with a big-ass top hat. Her taking the premise of Zone and turning it into the groundwork for D.Gray-Man. It going on to become a smash hit that sold over 25 million copies worldwide. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the series has been running for over 20 years now, originally starting in Weekly Shonen Jump back in May of 2004, and still going there for these last 20 years into today, right? Obviously not. And back in April of 2009, the series went on hiatus for a bit before it was transferred over to Jump Square that November, a monthly magazine with series like Blue Exorcist, Goku Rakugai, World Trigger, and running there monthly until 2024, right? Well, that's still not the case. And in 2013, D.Gray-Man went back on hiatus, eventually resuming publication in 2015, but this time now in Jump Square Crown, a spin-off of Jump Square that ran quarterly. D.Gray-Man having gone from weekly chapters to monthly to now for a year, meaning that even after 20 plus years of publication, the series is currently at 28 total volumes with just enough material for a 29th. Lastly, it was moved once again to Jump Square Rise, but this time just because Crown had ended publication and Rise was created to replace it. Still running quarterly like before, so no major change there. Obviously, this is a big part of the conversation around D.Gray-Man. The long list of hiatuses and delayed chapters over these last 20 years being a huge barrier to entering the series. But before I get ahead of myself and talk about those hiatuses and Katsura Hoshino's art style, what exactly is D.Gray-Man? What is this manga that, despite having such a stunted release schedule, has kept fans like me hooked on the line for years now? So first up, let's take a look at Volume 1, and the start of the story that is Alan Walker's suffering. A boy whose life from start to now has been rocked and broken down over and over in this dark, gothic world. Oh yeah, and also, like, sub, comment, all of that shit. I got a Patreon too and need bread to feed my puppy. Look at him, he is starving without your help. Jokes aside, the only reason I got this Halloween video out in October is thanks to your all support these last few months since losing my job, so I really appreciate all that. Anyway, let's go. The first chapter opens in a fictional 19th century, and in this world, there are things that lurk in the dark. Monsters that hide in human skin, waiting for their chance to infect and devour the people they've blended into. Them being called Akuma or Akuma, depending on how you want to say it. I'm not gonna judge you. Mechanical-like beings that exist to be weapons against humanity, created by a mysterious being known only as the Earl of Millennium. A big, goofy-looking demon with a bright trench coat, multiple different top hats, and an umbrella with a pumpkin head tip, almost always wearing a huge, goofy grin. In this alternate world, when a person loses someone close to them, as with all humans, they grieve. They cry out and would do anything to bring them back. And with that wish in their hearts, the Earl appears in front of them, offering a hopeful hand. If the Earl uses his power and you wish hard enough, he can pop a shell out of a Gunpla frame and find the soul of your dead loved one, giving them that new body. Unfortunately, this process is not godly at all. The departed soul feeling immense pain and torture as the Earl stuffs it into this monstrous body. The newly formed Akuma being under total control of the Earl and on his command, killing the grieving person and assuming their role in life, waiting for its chance to infect more humans around it. This is where the hero of our story steps in, one Alan Walker, a white-haired 15-year-old kid that has a pentagram scar crossing over his left eye and a crimson-red left arm. A golden snitch from Harry Potter named Tim Campy flying by his side as they go from town to town purifying the souls of Akuma as exorcists, the warriors of God that fight against the Earl's evil soul manipulation. Alan himself, when he was younger, falling into the Earl's trap and bringing the soul of his dead adoptive dad back to life. It being forced into an Akuma shell and cursing Alan, cutting his left eye and leaving that pentagram scar as a permanent reminder of Alan's mistake. His weird red arm exploding and cutting down the Akuma dad, traumatizing Alan and causing him to live a life dedicated to exorcising the souls of Akuma, and even more so, to hunt down the Earl himself. Hopefully to, somehow, stop this war of hate and sadness between humanity and the Earl's madness. And from here, Alan goes on to meet the Exorcist team he will be working with throughout the series, the Black Order. Characters like Kanda, Linali, and Lavi fighting with him to take the Akuma down and put a stop to the Earl's plans. The thing is, despite this kinda standard plot setup and the week-to-week shonen battles filling the early volumes, the series takes some extreme shifts and wild turns, going from a story of exorcising glorified demons to a painful dive into the broken minds of people who have lived through endless hells. The Earl and his minions waging a holy war that's lasted over 7,000 years, causing the suffering of so many people on both sides of the battle. And in my opinion, creating both a story and world that is consistently one of the most interesting and captivating in manga. But before we dive into that actual story and how it's changed so much over these 20 years, let's first look at what the biggest pillar of the manga probably is, the thing that brought me to the series in the first place. That, of course, being Hoshino's breathtaking artwork, and how she uses it to craft the interactions between the cast, both in and out of combat. along with the entire world itself that surrounds this holy war. When it comes to D.Gray-Man, I feel like one of its loudest and strongest talking points online is the art that Hoshino has evolved from the early chapters to the current releases. In the beginning, character designs absolutely looked of their time from 2004. More rounded features, bigger anime eyes, you know, that early 2000s flair that things like the start of Bleach or Shaman King had. But just like with both of those series, her art style has evolved to a whole new level in these last 20 years. Taking the cast from what I would consider good solid shonen designs to these beautiful, well-crafted, and almost needlessly stylish characters who, honestly, don't look like they belong in a shonen battle manga at all. But I'll talk more about that idea later. She knows when to remove all other elements in the background and fully focus in on the characters who matter. Some shots feeling like they're the only two people in this whole world, and what matters more than anything is this moment right here. Alan himself is one of the biggest examples of her artistic progression. Him going from that shaggy hair small boy to a tall, slender, and expressive adult, despite only technically being 1 year older in the story. His hair has become much more spiked at the ends, Hoshino herself commenting on how he looks like a Saiyan now. But the small changes to things like the shape of his eyes, the definition of his chin, the detail of his body shape, it all grows to be so well crafted and makes both Alan and the rest of the cast who have their own design characteristics all stand out from each other and evolve in equally as stunning ways. Shit, look at Lena Lee. She's had like 3 or 4 different design changes over the course of the story. But hand in hand with these extremely beautiful characters is an overall sense of comedic levity, Halloween aesthetics, and gothic overtones. Hoshino on the fly switching between full spreads of the most beautiful character shots with amazing shading and endless intricity, over to total goofy goober moments with Alan looking like the small bean boy, or Komui being a freak over his Comlin robots. And no matter what's going on, this never leaves the story. Hoshino doing her best to balance the Akuma battles and suffering of the characters with lighthearted shonen fun, which both work sometimes and not so much others, as we'll talk about later. A small but favorite detail of mine is that when an Akuma infects a person with their poison blood, their skin breaks out in a rash of jet black stars, covering their body until the skin crumbles and that person turns to dust. It being both a beautiful but horrific death. And it's those little details like all of these stars on someone's body that really makes that aesthetic of her shine so bright. When it comes to that balance between her two major styles, the most obvious example is the Earl himself. The big trench coat top hat demon who is always looking like a jolly Tim Burton Santa, bouncing around and filling the world with endless evil. Until that switch flips and he gets legit pissed, his face distorting in rage at the exorcist in his way. And it's just creepy as hell. I love it. It lets the Earl keep his goofy and aloof nature, but slamming down to remind you that he is the king of all evil, so don't ever get comfortable around him. His design is absolutely based on Philip Astley, a guy who lived from the 17 to 1800s and is considered to be the father of the modern circus. And with how much of D.Gray-Man's core aesthetic is clown and Pierrot circus shit, it makes sense for the father of all playful evil in this world to be based on the creator of clowns himself. And with that foundation in the art itself, the other major aspect to the art of a shonen series would, of course, be the combat scenes between Exorcist and Akuma. The 7,000-year holy war the series is set around being filled with tons of shonen powers. In D.Gray-Man, exorcists are warriors of God that are working to save humanity. And as soldiers of heaven would need, they are given tools to fight back against the Earl and his Akuma, the spiritual weapons called Innocence. Thousands of years ago in this long-standing war, the exorcists discovered a cube, it being made from a strange material with a prophecy inscribed into it, stating that this cube was a crystal of God, or Innocence, that could be used to stop the foretold 3 days of darkness, a calamity brought down on humanity by the Millennium Earl, it already having happened once 7,000 years ago, it being the Great Flood from the Old Testament, the one Noah built an ark for to ride out with God's orders, the Earl trying once again to do something similar to that flood of old. Following the cube's prophecy and with the return of the Earl, the Black Order was established to track down the innocents scattered across the world. There actually only being 109 total pieces out there for either the Exorcist to find and use, or for the Earl to capture and destroy, removing a potential weapon against him from the war. With all of the weird and unexplainable phenomenon that happen across the world, things like cryptid sightings or ghost stories, usually involving an innocence somehow. But past that, the innocence has a heart, a specific special power that's hidden somewhere inside of an already existing innocence. It having both the power to either win the war if discovered by an exorcist, or destroy all remaining innocents if found by the Earl. Both sides in a constant race to discover just where the hell this heart is even hiding. With this framework, which is cool as hell by the way, making the Great Flood of Noah a major part of the plot whips ass, and yes, we will be coming back to that. The combat of D.Gray-Man is, at first, standard human versus monster shonen fights. The exorcists using character-specific power moves to slash, crush, or kick the shit out of Akuma. This formula continues for a bit as Hoshino introduced the sidecasts and their individual attacks. But where the combat of the series really kicks into high gear is with the introduction of the Clan of Noah. 12 reincarnated apostles of Noah who serve the Earl in his war for rapture, with him being considered the first Noah, Adam, them altogether making up the 13 Noah. 13 warriors of the original Noah who have carried on a 7,000-year hatred against seemingly the world itself. The 12 under the Earl repopulating the world after the Great Flood, meaning that all of humanity is their descendants. And due to that bloodline running in every human, the Noah are reincarnated time and time again, awakening in random hosts with a fire that never leaves their souls. The stigmata on all of their foreheads burning to their skin's surface and officially marking them as a member of the Clan of Noah. From that point forward, the series is full of chapter-long fights between Exorcist and the clan, huge power clashes, and a large-scale destruction. Now, as how it translates into the moment-to-moment attacks and volume-wide battles, I do think sometimes it can be a bit hectic. The actual attacks are usually cool as hell, and the growth of characters' innocence is always raw to see. Kanda's Mugen sword that cut through Akuma with ease, Lavi's size-shifting hammer that goes big mode like Usopp's and slams through elemental runes, Lina Lee's boots that boost her speed and kicks to supersonic levels. These all being forms of innocence that are accommodated to the user's souls. Besides the people like that who have gear, you have characters like Alan with parasitic innocence, it being implanted in their bodies, his left arm having a cross of God grafted into it and popping off to destroy Akuma. The arm itself growing into a giant beast-like claw that rends monsters in half with huge cross explosions, freeing the trapped souls inside. Both the innocence and arm itself evolving through the story to do all kinds of shit we'll talk about later. Now, with these powers and attacks as the framework, the actual fights themselves can sometimes straight up just be hard to follow. Hoshino has a very wispy style, full of line work and motion, and while that looks phenomenal in character-focused shots, it sometimes makes the panels of combat just outright hard to understand, wondering who hit who with what and from where. Now, I'm one of Trigun's biggest defenders, and like I talked about years ago in that video, it suffers from some of the same problems. Both Night Owl and Hoshino's styles are just what they are, and you either vibe with it or you can't. Personally, I don't mind when the fights get a bit messy or hard to follow and keep up with, because 9 out of 10 times, the backing character emotion, the dialogue and the reasons for fighting are so strong that it makes up for shots that can straight up lose my eyes, with the more recent chapters from the past few years really ironing out those issues. Mostly by having barely any actual real combat scenes at all, like in these early volumes. So with that said, if the combat of D.Gray slowly starts to die down over time, what exactly is it replaced with? Where and how does the story shift from the shonen holy war to the path of painful memories that both Alan and the people caught up in this war walk down? With this, I want to talk about the story of D.Gray-Man, the progression and the hiatuses, and mostly what I would call the 3 major chunks of the plot. The first being the early few volumes, then the middle leading into like volume 19, and from there forward where the series went fully monthly/quarterly for the final part. Now, no lies to tell, this is going to be a bit long-winded because I kinda just want to both discuss the series, but also, real shit, try and recap things for people who are years-long fans that may have fallen off over time. And hopefully, one way or another, I can convince you to give it a shot or hop back in there. I do still totally plan to talk about the anime after this, both the original and Hallowed, so jump all the way to here if you don't want any story spoilers. And if you're someone who's maybe read half the series and want a recap of what you know before diving back in yourself, the 3 parts will be segmented, so you can skip ahead later if needed. Cool? Aight. So with the earlier framework established about Alan and his backstory of creating an Akuma out of Mana Walker, his adoptive dad, and the large-scale holy war going on for so many years, the early volumes of DGM are mostly actually about introducing new Exorcist sidecast members and the innocence they use. You have Kanda, the long-haired, pissed-off swordsman who's a lone wolf Sasuke type, his innocence forming in the shape of a katana called Mugen, the tattoo on his heart seemingly tied to a deeper backstory that he has suppressed down inside himself, somehow able to regenerate from wounds unlike any of the other Exorcist fighters. Lena Lee, who, extremely silly name aside, is the polite and kind-hearted backbone of the European Black Order branch, the one who kinda looks over the team and welcomes them back home with a smile. Lena Lee uses the Dark Boots Innocence, a heavy pair of jet black boots that give her super speed and big kicks, but at the cost of her own body's strength over time. All the while, her guilt for mistakes made building up inside of her and filling Lena Lee with a constant sense of regret. The odd dream she has about the future constantly weighing on her mind, unable to figure out exactly what they mean. And of course, the fan favorite Lavi, apprentice to the Bookman clan, a group that has cataloged the world's hidden history throughout time, them keeping records of the things humanity has buried and forgot, working with the Exorcists in this phase of the Holy War, but overall keeping a quiet neutrality to both sides of the battle, with Lavi himself being next in line to record and watch over the unfolding history being made, ordered by the Elder Bookman to keep his mind and heart in the gray zone. But of course, trapped between his duties as a bookman and the friendships being made within the Black Order. For battles, he uses the earlier mentioned Usopp Innocence hammer that can just grow or shrink in size, slamming it through elemental runes to give it power, or straight up riding it through the sky like a witch's broom. Out of the three main side exorcists, Wavi definitely has the least revealed backstory or current growth as of now, so what you see is what you get. But between his aloof personality, amazing design, and interesting role in the story, he just totally whips ass. And the more current chapters do imply that the Bookman, and by extension Wavi's time, is coming. With this cast, the story unfolds in an almost monster of the week type fashion, despite the actual small arcs themselves lasting multiple chapters each. And it mainly serves to flesh out both the types of Akuma and what they can do, as well as the world itself that all of this takes place in, with how God and Noah are connected to this war. There's the Castle Crory arc, where the gang meets a literal vampire named Alistair Crory, obviously named after Aleister Crowley, his parasitic innocence turning him into a fanged exorcist. You have the Rewinding City arc, where a town is trapped in a repeating day and only one girl seems to notice it. The timid and baggy-eyed Miranda Lotto, her possessing the Record of Time innocence, able to rewind time itself for a fixed period both in the world and affecting people around her, wiping away battle damage mid-fight for a health boost, even if only temporary. This arc also introducing the first of the Noah to Alan and the crew, the Master of Dreams Road Camelot, which is, in my opinion, the first marker of the coming tone shift in DGM. There's really not much else to say about these early volumes. Honestly, they're just solid shonen battles that build up an increasingly interesting backstory while bringing in Crory and Miranda as Exorcist crew members, who despite me liking them both a lot, they for sure do not get as many shining moments in the story as it's gone on. I am not even sure on the last time Miranda was in a panel. But around the end of volumes 6 to 7, the story begins to shift into what I think most people know D.Gray-Man for, with both the introduction of Summon Dark and the dude himself, Tiki Meek, another of the Noah who serves the Earl that walks a somewhat similar line to Alan himself. With the arrival of the Noah into the story, the Earl decides to knock the plot up a notch and sends out his crew to exterminate exorcists across the world, with the slick-hair badass Tiki himself cutting down tons of soldiers with total ease, forcing the few surviving exorcists of the world and Black Order generals themselves to lock in and prepare for all-out attacks. The combined power of both the Noah and Earl himself being vastly greater than the remaining exorcists. And think about it. If you were one of these exorcists faced with these unwinnable odds, literal warriors against God have wiped out your friends and are now coming at you, what would you do? What's the human reaction? Well, for some, it's one of total desperation. An exorcist bowing their heads to the godless monsters in front of them to beg for mercy, to see their families again, to live another day. And in God's eyes, that plea for mercy, that fear and wish to live, is the same thing as betraying heaven itself. The innocents equipped to an exorcist accommodator that's turned their back on God, morphing and destroying their souls, creating what's called a fallen one, a being of broken innocence running loose and obliterating anything it comes in contact with. And now, due to Tiki's slaughter, an exorcist named Summon Dark has become one of these fallen ones. A dying wish to see his family turned against him and now used by the Earl to cause large-scale destruction. Alan forced to confront the idea that this innocence, this power of God, has totally turned on Summon and is now trying to kill him from the inside for the simple crime of wanting to live, has to think, is this right? Is this what God would want? Summon, and all exorcists alike, are warriors against the Earl. And like I had said earlier, the Earl uses the grief of people who have lost loved ones to trick them into calling back those souls, before of course stuffing them into Akuma bodies and creating his army. So with that, any exorcist who joins the war by law of the order cannot tell their family shit about what they do. I mean, think about it. If a high-ranking exorcist is killed in action and the family is informed, that grief could attract the Earl, tricking the surviving family into creating an Akuma with the strength of an exorcist, and also meaning that the remaining Black Order army would have to face down the tortured souls of their fallen friends. It's a really vicious cycle, leaving your family behind to fight a war that if you should die in, they'll never even know you're gone. The responsibility of mourning left to your exorcist partners who can't even grieve for themselves, because if they do, it could attract the Earl. So with that said, obviously all of this doesn't seem too godly, right? In fact, that shit sucks. Something that Alan himself is broken down by. In front of him is a soul that's being tortured for just wanting to see his kid again, becoming a mindless monster that's killed hundreds of innocents while in constant pain. And it's all being caused by the innocence inside, the same type of innocence in Alan's arm, with the crescendo of Tiki appearing and effectively killing Alan, crushing his innocence and leaving the body in the woods, capping off with Alan falling into a weird dreamlike state between life and death. A huge moon hanging both above him in the sky and below him in the water, before something inside, something else, grabs him and wakes him up. Alan having lost his innocence and largely his faith in God itself. This whole sequence of events marks the first real big shakeup in the plot of D.Gray-Man. It both opening new sides to the Holy War by showing that God and the Innocents are not simply as good as one would think, while also planting the first seed of something inside of Alan, a shadowed figure that sometimes makes its presence felt. And now, training in China's Black Order branch with his innocence evolving to the next form. The real showstopper that everyone thinks about when it comes to D.Gray-Man's combat. Alan's hair going full Super Saiyan and forming a huge white cloak covering both his body and kind of just the space around him. The cloak itself wearing a silver mask across its face. His innocence evolving into this brand new power, the Crowned Clown. A seemingly formless being that surrounds Alan like a suit and moves according to his willpower, extending and increasing his reach, his strength, and his overall badass design. Him looking cooler than ever while he wipes away level 1 through 3 Akuma. With this new power, something that can possibly stand up to the Noah after he got crushed so hard by Tiki, the plot's focus shifts from Exorcist vs Akuma fights across the world to a unified goal, that being to recover the Ark, a weird dimensional teleporter that the Earl has seemingly used for thousands of years. It being full of buildings and doorways that lead to random places and locations around the world, with technology that is seemingly way too advanced for it to be as old as it is. And also, Alan's missing in action sensei Cross Marion on a mission to infiltrate the Ark and shut it down. Our Exorcist team banding together to storm across Japan and eventually the Ark itself. Going into what I would consider the second chunk of the second part, the Ark. While tracking down Master Cross, the crew learns that somewhere in Japan, the Earl has stationed his Noah's Ark, this massive cube-like machine that teleports through rifts in the world and seems endlessly big on the inside, with Cross himself on the hunt for a machine located inside the Ark that is apparently automatically producing Akuma soldiers, a big-ass egg giving birth to an endless army. the Black Order crew hopping in as well to assist Alan's mysterious master. For the next few volumes, the chapter-to-chapter moments are largely filled with explosive battles. The Noah taking on the Exorcists at different paths and giving everyone solid moments to shine. Kanda takes on Skin Boric, teasing more questions about his hidden backstory and why he can seemingly see illusory lotus flowers. Him being the only one of the main cast to, at this point, successfully kill a Noah. Kanda falling over himself and possibly losing his own life from the battle. Crory, for the first time since his arc, gets a huge moment to fight against David and Joss Darrow, the twin Noah freaks that work in sync with each other to blast Corey's ass using dark matter pistols, the two combining together to create Joss Devi, their actual true form that at some point were separated from. Lastly, Alan, Lavi, and Lena Lee are face down with Tiki and Road, the duo who have toyed with Alan the most on his journey so far. At this point in the story, Alan has been through a lot, starting his early life by watching his dad die and then soul tortured due to his own mistakes. And since then, Alan has tried to walk a path of protecting the innocent from the Akuma, to stop the Earl and make sure no other people ended up in shoes like his. But confronted with things like the painful death of Suman Dark, the mysterious memories in his heart, and the loss of his own innocence, he begins to stumble a bit. His dedication to killing Akuma and fighting in the war shifts from doing what's right in God's eyes to more about being what he believes that Alan himself was made for. Him admitting that he doesn't even feel human anymore, and that with the innocence in his arm having evolved into the crowned clown, if you really think about it, Alan is a living anti-Akuma weapon, his heart saying that his only purpose in life is to kill the Akuma and save the souls inside of them. Almost like his body itself just has an unnatural urge, using his right hand to reach out to the souls of humanity and the left arm to defend them. And now, after fighting his way to Tiki at the top of the arc, reaching full synchronization with his innocence, Alan pulls out the goddamn Jesus Buster sword from his left arm, the innocence itself becoming this huge blade, easily cutting through and directly exorcising the trapped souls inside both Akuma and Noah, giving Tiki some dope-ass cross scars from the cut. And holy shit, this is really raw. Looking back over this long-ass battle arc in its whole, I think it's a really solid mix of both great fight moments for tons of cast members, and strong plot progression with both answers and new questions. The climax, of course, capping off with the appearance of the biggest dick G himself, Cross Marion. Him using his Dante/Vash the Stampede-ass revolver and Kyoraku's Bankai to beat back both the Earl and his Noah, securing the arc as it begins to self-destruct. And in this moment, the real plot of D.Gray-Man begins to show its head. The reason the series is one of my top tiers. Cross telling Alan that this arc is controlled by a piano, and only the authorized pianist can play it, them having the ability to stop the self-destruction and fully control the arc, and that Alan himself is that pianist. Already confused as hell, Cross throws Alan into a secret room that could only be opened by Tim Campy, a large lounge area with a grand piano sitting in it waiting for its player. And if that wasn't enough, that shaded figure from volumes ago reappears and tells Alan to play, that this is the will of the 14th, with the score for the music itself being made up of symbols that he created years ago with Mana, his dead dad, leaving Alan confused as hell. When I was originally reading this arc, I was shitting bricks, dude. This is the exact type of stuff I had been waiting for. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy all of DGM from start to current, but finally addressing more of this mysterious Noah stuff and tying it all into Alan himself had me peaking. Something I talked about years ago in my Shaman King video was how I was raised in and still live largely around a missionary Baptist community. Like old school down south Baptist shit. And while now I largely have no interest in religion as a thing in my life, and no shame to anyone who does, the core aesthetics and nature of religion itself across the world has always interested me, mainly due to where I grew up, and it's made me both love seeing other religions that I don't know shit about, and how people from other cultures interpret Christianity. Shit, my top 1 anime of all time is still Evangelion because of all the other 1000 reasons I love it aside. This aesthetic shit right here appeals directly to me. And here in D.Gray-Man, it's been a solid part of the story from chapter 1. The plot first locking me in with the idea that Noah are remnants of people who survived the Great Flood, them on a crusade to kill God seemingly. And now it going even deeper with the locked away possible 14th Noah. Someone or something locked inside of Alan that is slowly coming more to the surface. And I was going page to page with the quickness, brother, cause I was hooked. To bring back up Vash the Stampede, he is one of my favorite characters of all time. I named my fucking dog after him. And it's largely because he's the ultimate badass sad boy. A truly kind-hearted and good person who is in a constant struggle with the nature of who he is, of what he can become. And over here in some weekly Shonen Jump series about God and exorcists, the same type of character was being created right in front of me, and from there, would only go on to double down on these plot points and, in my opinion, make D.Gray-Man the legend it still is to this day. But before I talk more about that, there's actually one more chunk of this part 2 that I want to talk about. Volumes 14 through 18 mainly, where things feel a bit, weird. So with the ending of Noah's arc and the return to home base, the plot's tone has obviously shifted in a major way due to the last few volumes, and keeps this up going forward. Alan facing a whole new level of unease from the fellow exorcists, nervous and confused about the idea that a 14th Noah who was previously totally unknown to most regular people might be inside of Alan, with the Vatican itself sending an inspector to assess the situation. The short-stash, super intense gremlin Ruvelier, or Lavelle depending on where you read official translations or the fan scans, and his right-hand boy toy Howard Link. Them wondering just what the hell is up with this arc and why can Alan control it? How is he connected to the 14th Noah, and what is Cross Marion's involvement in all of this? Questions that, both then and largely to this day, are still kind of unanswered. From here, the flow of the story warps around due to the torment and confusion Alan feels inside himself, knowing there seems to be some buried personality that he's literally catching glimpses of in mirrors, with chapter 166 of the manga finally taking a slight step back to reveal some of the backstory about Alan, showing him as a young boy when he first met Mana Walker, them standing together at a recently dug gravesite for a dog who had just seemingly been beaten to death. The young boy angry at the fact that some dipshit jealous performer probably did it since Mana is really talented, with Mana himself not getting mad or sad, just having to smile and accept it for what it is, stating that his tears had dried up years ago. The young boy, thinking about how this dog had licked his hand the day before, a familiar looking scarred left hand, begins to cry over the grave and asks Mana for the name of the dog. Smiling, Mana is happy to know that even if the dog is gone, he had the young boy here to mourn for him where Mana can't. Someone to shed tears over the loss of his dog named Alan, before cutting back to current time. Obviously, this is the first actual interaction we've seen between Mana and Alan, and that moment itself reveals another thing we didn't know about, being that Alan is named after this dog who passed away, not really being named Alan at all. Now, the thing is, in the reverse light novels, there are side stories for the manga, the third book from 2011 having a story titled Lost Fragment of Snow. It literally being this exact chapter but also a totally extended scenario where the boy called Red Arm lived in total hell with this traveling circus, them constantly abusing and treating him like a child slave, before some major plot things happen and reveal tons of answers to lingering questions from chapter 166. But I'm not gonna talk about those here because, slight spoiler, Hoshino has finally illustrated that backstory, it actually being one of the most recent arcs. And while the manga version itself does change some details and add plenty more due to the fact that it was like 8 to 10 years later when they were released, the overall backstory had totally been out in the world from 2011 forward, and my ass had no clue until creating this video. It's got a full translation online, but since it's now been adapted into the main story, if you want, you're honestly fine to just keep reading the manga. Folks, let me tell ya, these chapters of reveal after reveal with huge implications and setups for what's to come, it's like Hoshino was rewarding me directly with plot points that struck my heart, soul, and brain. These new revelations about Alan and his story had me on the edge of my seat. And just when you're ready for what's next with these new reveals, the Order's home base is straight up attacked. Akuma filling the halls and the Noah Lulu Bell capturing and executing whoever they come across, leaving Alan and the surviving exorcist to try and repel the invasion. The captured Akuma egg giving birth to a level 4 and the generals having to actually step up and assist them. Now, real shit, while I don't dislike this small arc, it's a bit sudden. We just spent like 5-ish volumes in back-to-back fights, and now when big plot reveals begin to happen, the fighting picks right back up and at this time actually kills some of the smaller side cast members. And it's kinda really sad. And immediately after it ends, introducing a replacement for the dead character and starting a gag arc involving zombies. Before after that, jumping right back to the early volume Monster of the Week type adventures looking for Innocence accommodators. Introducing a new character named Timothy, a boy who can possess Akuma and purify the souls inside. And if I have one small complaint about D.Gray-Man, it's this chunk right here, where the plot has become so involved and developed with the main cast, them going through huge battle after battle, but then starting an immediate gag arc after the deaths of characters felt kinda off, only to follow up with a new character who has done absolutely nothing after this arc as of now and barely even been on page. So at this point, it just feels a bit out of place compared to what had come before. Now, behind the scenes, as the chapters were being dropped, the weekly pace of D.Gray-Man had begun to slow, it now dropping back to back for a few weeks, then taking a week or two off, rinse and repeat, with the scale of weeks off growing larger than weeks on. Before, in the middle of volume 19, the series would go on a few-year hiatus, leaving fans in a broken state and wondering where things would go from here. Now, before we dive back into the story with the final chunk and where everything aside, I do feel like D.Gray-Man has hit its peak. Let's talk a bit now about that huge shadow that hangs over the series. This, of course, being the glacial release schedule, and how it's affected every aspect of D.Gray from the story and art to the fan base itself. So like I have said earlier in the video, the release schedule for D.Gray over the last 20 years has changed more than once, with the series frequently going on long hiatuses before getting to the current state where we're lucky to get one every 4 months. One infamous time the quarterly release chapter only being 7 total pages, the next one not releasing until months away. Which, man, that sucks. Unfortunately, this comes from one of the most common things that's been a problem in the manga world forever. Even worse, with barely any signs of stopping. And that's the combination of an artist giving literal blood, sweat, and tears to draw things like this, weekly, year after year, in a job space that still has issues with heavy over-the-top work culture. We all have series that we love that have gone on hiatus, be it a short one or things that are ongoing for 20 years. Bastard, Nana, Vagabond. Series that might unfortunately never come back, with the saddest of examples being creators like Miura and Toriyama working themselves so hard for so long that it eventually took a fatal toll. And while the specific reasons have never been outright stated, Hoshino has had long-standing health issues from the early days of DGM to the current chapters here in 2024. And unfortunately for us fans, this is just the best pace we can currently hope for. Obviously, she has a team of assistants, the people who help make D.Gray-Man what it is. And you'll often see people online asking, well, can't she just pass it off to her team and write the story? She doesn't need to draw it herself, and that way she can take it easier. And while I do think this thought usually does come from a well-meaning place, that's something that's easier said than done. DGM isn't the only thing you'll hear this about. Hunter x Hunter is famous for its long-lasting hiatuses due to Togashi's extremely fucked up back problems. And while he has reappeared on Twitter lately to show that he is still drawing and chapters have been released in the last year, people still say, bro, just let your wife finish it. She drew Sailor Moon, she can draw this. And yeah, that's true. But the reason Togashi still creates his manga, the reason he still draws this story, is probably because it's his. I'm not about to act like this comparison is on the same level at all, but just like with the videos I make, they're all built by me. Sure, I'm using shit from all across the internet to make them, but it's my editing, my script, my dumbass jokes and bad opinions. Honestly, it's one of the realest forms of me there is. And I'm sure actual creative artists feel similar about their series. So, no, I don't want Togashi or Hoshino to feel like they have no choice but to hand their babies off to others while they direct them. And with Hoshino, she still wants to keep that Allen train going. Hell, she said at a fan event last year that she wants D.Gray to last for 50 total volumes, which we will talk more about later. And with the step back to the monthly and quarterly releases, she's able to set up for the final big part of D.Gray-Man, the current chapters and the still wide open mysteries. And keep in mind while I talk about this part, the info is all based on what's available. Tons of these questions and arcs have no conclusions, and real shit, a chapter should be coming out here within the next few weeks minus any delays, and that could totally invalidate things I'm about to say. I'm going to keep some of the deeper details and full breakdowns a bit vague since, like I had said, I assume a lot of people still watching are lapsed fans of the series who enjoyed it at one point in these last 20 years, but for understandable reasons have just fallen out and are wanting to recap so they can catch back up. So hopefully this convinces you to jump back in and see these arcs in their full glory. And with all of these things in mind, let's take a look at Volume 19 forward, at what I would say is modern age D.Gray-Man, which is what I consider to be the peak of the series. Halfway into Volume 19 on Chapter 187 specifically, the series makes its return from an over 2-year hiatus, opening on the awakening of a new Noah and the reappearance of the Earl. Him right up front finally introducing all of the remaining Noah, minus Skin Boric, who was killed by Kanda in the arc, with Hoshino completely updating their designs to all be beautiful as fuck, but also rip to the freak twink designs of Joss Devi. I kinda prefer these honestly. The story now kicking itself right back into high gear with the Exorcist spread across the world in large-scale battles with Akuma, and now the Noah themselves spreading out between the fights and doing massive damage. Right before the series had gone on break, Hoshino had introduced a new element to the story, the Vatican's crafted warriors called Third Exorcists, them being half human and half Akuma. their creation and objectives top secret among the Black Order, the 5 half beings spread across the battlefield just like the Noah. But as with most things on our good guys' side, they can't compare and shrink that all to the clan. The exorcists across the world all falling to the Earl's onslaught, with the Earl himself invading the Exorcist HQ, except he's ditched the fat suit to reveal that this whole time, the Earl has actually just been a normal looking dude, the suit forming around him when he begins to pop off into combat. Him and the Noah finally actually going hard to complete their goal of drowning the world in darkness, them on the hunt for the earlier mentioned Heart of Innocence. Like I had said, if the Earl destroys that heart, all innocence shatters and he effectively wins the war. But the heart itself is still in hiding. Some accommodators have shown potential to maybe have that heart, Alan and Lena Lee's innocence evolving to weird new heights, while also intertwining deeper within their bodies, but not enough to be the ones who could theoretically destroy all Noah and end the war. This battle for the heart is largely what the current arcs have all kinda revolved around in one way or another, because despite the coming plot revelations, this is the tool that will end the war, so it's arguably the most important piece of this entire holy puzzle. When I was first reading through this volume, the shift from weekly to monthly hit me in the head like a fucking brick. You can tell right away that the story is rebooting almost. The Earl even welcoming both the Noah and by extension the readers back to the world of D.Gray-Man. The plot blasting forward to no longer focus on any form of week-to-week Akuma battles, and instead totally focusing on the characters, the plot that's been set up for them. But before we actually dive into that, the first arc in this return is the Alma Karma story. Hoshino finally revealing the full background of one of the fan favorite characters, Kanda, tying it in with a childhood friend, Alma. Them being test tube creations made by the Order as limitless weapons to use against the Earl. The scientists doing horrific and torturous experiments on the boys to test their potential, to push them to the edge and see how far they could last as tools for God. The duo only able to find any peace at all in each other, in this sad friendship they found together. Of course, this doesn't last, and due to Alma's mind breaking down and slaughtering the scientists who created him, he is taken out and locked away. The Noah now finding him all of these years later and waking him back up, forcing Kanda to fight his former best friend and Alan to try and find a way to stop them both, knowing that neither of them are bad people, just victims of the bullshit they were born into. Another plaything of God in this holy war. I don't want to spoil the finale of this arc because it's easily one of the sweetest and strongest moments in the whole series so far, with Kanda, who I honestly feel like at this point of the story kinda needed more exposure in the spotlight compared to everybody else. And now with this, the wavering swordsman is able to bury his past and step forward into the future. The plot now shifting into what I would almost honestly consider to be one long arc. The years-lasting AW chapters. Hoshino preparing to answer tons of questions while asking a long list more. So after it was introduced in the middle of the story, the real backbone and big driving force of the plot for the last so many volumes has been, what the hell is up with the 14th Noah inside of Alan? The memories finally coming more to the surface as Cross sits down to explain some things, hard confirming that Alan is, in fact, the host body of the 14th Noah, who will one day use Alan to return to this world. The 14th actually being the twin brother to Mana, who after he had died years ago, swore he would one day make his way back to Mana's side. So if Alan has been hosting this soul to Mana's dead brother, was their relationship all those years ago real? Did Mana love Alan or just the soul inside of him? This question kind of tormenting Alan. And as the will of the 14th is growing stronger inside of him, he's slowly losing control of his body. Some of his actions, reactions, and thoughts straight up not being his, and instead being this cunning Noah under the surface that wants out. With all of this new information, the Order realizes they can't exactly trust Alan. He's a wild card with a split personality who at any point could act in a way they wouldn't understand. Ruvalier locking Alan down in confinement. Our protagonist at his probable lowest point in the whole story so far. Trying to come to terms with this voice that's slowly taking him over. And if shit wasn't dire enough, Hoshino introduces a whole new character that will go on to rock the plot from chapter to chapter. The monstrous Apocryphos, a walking, talking innocence that serves the heart and no one or nothing else, acting on his own agenda and causing Alan to break out of his exorcist prison and go on the run, living in hiding for over 3 months now. Tucked away from both Freak Lord Apocryphos, the Earl, and the Order itself while he tries to work out this demon inside himself. These chapters, in my opinion, set the stage perfectly for what this new saga of D.Gray-Man is all about, both in plot, art, and tone. If it's not obvious, the series has come a long way since its weekly Shonen Jump days. And despite it still technically being a shonen series due to it being published in a shonen magazine, the manga is outright no longer a battle shonen in my opinion. Like real shit, there's barely any fighting that I would classify as a shonen power battle. The page-to-page Akuma fights from early on being reduced down in size to focus more on the constant new character moments and big plot developments. Despite enjoying the combat throughout D.Gray-Man, I really do feel like Hoshino excels far more in her character writing and plot developing than in the frame-to-frame fighting. And while that doesn't mean there isn't still dope-ass big attacks and raw designs, it's just way more likely to focus on extremely beautiful portraits of characters as they struggle against an ungodly fate. And all of this just hooked me into the series harder than ever. The story going from here to lead into the current chapters, and creating the burning questions that most of us still have to this day. So like I had said, it's been 3 months since Alan has fled the Order, branded a traitor and wanted by the Vatican for execution. And in that time, 2 people decide to step up and go hunt for Alan. One being Kanda, him having returned to the Order after the Alma Karma arc, making his peace with the past and facing the future with eyes focused forward. Feeling a bit like he owes a debt towards Alan for saving Alma's life and deciding to go on his own to learn the truth about the 14th Noah. With the other teammate being exorcist scientist Johnny Gill, a side character for most of the manga's run who's worked in the science division of the Black Order. Him having lost friends he was close to in those earlier invasion arcs, and now having lost another with Alan, knowing he's somewhere out there fighting this mental war with himself, Johnny steps up and breaks away from the Order to try and find Alan, to help him work out whatever demons he's got going on. The problem is, after spending day to day going between bar to bar, them back tracing Alan through the debts that were pawned off to him by Cross Marion, the duo track him down, our fugitive main character, posing as a clown to keep his face hidden and make some quick cash, roaming around town to town and just keeping to himself. And by the 2 exorcists exposing his secret identity, Nia is able to catch Alan totally off guard and take control of his host. Both the Earl and Apocryphos locking onto this location from that awakening. The town turning into a war zone as all 3 groups try and capture Alan/Nia. This battle peaking when the Earl himself confronts Nia, brother to brother or clone to clone, whatever. The suit splits open like before, and out falls Mana Walker, or Mana Campbell, I should say. The two embracing each other for the first time in over 30 years. This hug driving Mana's emotions wild. Him feeling sadness, happiness, fear, and anger all at once. Saying that both Nia tried to kill him, but Mana, or the Earl possibly, killed Nia instead. Revealing that years ago, the Millennium Earl vanished from the world for a while, and in the fragmented memories of Alan's double personality, can remember that the Earl seemed to be involved with a woman, them standing together in a large field with flowing wind. The woman looking up at the Lord of Evil with a heartwarming smile. And sometime shortly after that meeting, the Earl vanished. And by vanish, I mean he was split in half between two baby boys. The man who was the Earl gone, but leaving these twins in his place. The earlier mentioned woman raising these two babies as brothers, named Mana and Nia Campbell. Except now, with extended information, we know that Nia and Mana weren't brothers. They're two sides of the same coin, them technically both being the missing Millennium Earl. Nia claiming that Mana devoured him and took the power of the Earl. Nia's soul reincarnating into a host to one day seek his revenge on Mana. With, of course, Alan himself being the unlucky boy forced to house this homicidal, vengeful spirit. Him waking up and now wanting to erase Alan from this world, to take his body and regain his place in reality. His fractured memories causing Mana's mind to break, and despite knowing that he is the Earl, that he has a mission to complete, a 7,000-year-old goal, it almost seems like, more than anything, he just wants to be with his brother. Mana losing control and lashing out at the town around him. The power of the Earl reforming and straight up devouring the souls of exorcists caught in the crossfire. Tiki and the Noah finally appearing to take him away and calm his ass down. With Nia and Tiki having a stare down that implies tons of shit about their backstories and Tiki's reincarnated body. Him and Nia looking extremely similar when you stop and think about it. The 14th Noah filling Tiki with both rage and curiosity. Him vowing to solve the mystery of the brothers on his own. Now, it's something I've not really talked about, but it's mentioned that 35 years ago when the Mana-Nia split happened, all of the Noah were killed, and this current set are the reincarnations from that event. But as of now, we still have no idea what happened that day. The Noah Road hinting that she has some hidden information the rest of her clan don't know about since, unlike them, Road was the only Noah to survive. Her alone knowing the truth of that day 35 years ago and purposefully not telling anybody. So between her silence and Tiki's obsession, the truth of what happened that day has gotta come out eventually. And dude, this stack of chapters is, honestly, probably my favorite run in all of D.Gray-Man. Finally, we get to see Mana and Nia talk directly to each other. We see how Mana, and by extension the Earl himself, isn't just a goofy evil guy. He's a mentally broken man who cannot keep his emotions in check. Almost seeming like his age doesn't match his body. And despite his existence being one dedicated to destroying humanity, he's just a guy who loves his family and feels immense guilt for hurting them, remembering the horrific things he had suppressed and forgot, remembering that he killed and devoured his brother. Remembering giving into the Earl's obsession and beginning the 3 Days of Darkness plan once again. Blowing his own head off to, in a way, try and erase those painful memories. A desperate attempt at running from the guilt over what he's done and creating the Mana that Alan would go on to meet as a kid. Hoshino portraying this heartbreaking reunion with some of my most favorite panels from the whole manga. Her also finally letting Nia as a character break out of his cage, seeing what the actual personality is like, what his goals may be, revealing little things like Cross was supposed to be waiting on his return because they were working together, and that Tim Campy, Alan's lifelong partner, was a golem made by Nia, him watching over Alan all of these years due to the Noah in his soul. Doubling down on Alan's earlier worries that if Mana had actually even loved him in the first place, or if they were always destined to meet because of the soul inside, that Noah drawing them together. Also, it's really sweet seeing Johnny be such a great friend to Alan as he feels so alone and broken inside. The dude refuses to give up on him, reaching out to Alan and being the one that brings his soul back from Nia's grasp. And all in all, I just think he's a great character. I'm glad Hoshino decided to step him up into being a major cast member. He really deserves it. But, in my opinion, the biggest and most interesting part of this arc is something that, until even more recently, Hoshino has still left largely untouched. So throughout the whole series, characters have consistently had dreams that felt strange. Lena Lee seeing Alan and others dead in a place she didn't recognize, with Alan himself seeing similar things in his dreams. Standing in the middle of a destroyed city with a giant glowing cross figure in the sky above him. And right in the corner of the panel, a traffic light, which didn't exist in the 1800s. Now, years later, taking these little things peppered throughout the story and bringing them together, Hoshino introduces the idea that life is a helix, a spiral of death and rebirth. Souls of the dead passing on and eventually being reborn through the spiral of life. And the Earl, by both trapping and sometimes eating souls, removes them from that spiral, which at that point truly wipes a person from existence. So with that said, and knowing that the Noah are already beings that reincarnate over and over to fulfill their goals, does that mean that reincarnation overall in this universe is confirmed? And if so, and based on these dreams, what are the limits? Alan's already seen things in his dreams from different time periods. So what does that imply for the cast and the world as a whole? This is a question that will be touched on slightly more in the final major arc before the series is completely caught up to today, starting back in time with Red Arm and Mana in the circus, finally fully adapting the earlier mentioned light novel chapter and showing the absolute tragedy that was Alan's childhood. As we already know, Red Arm was raised in a shitty circus that used and abused him for their own gain. The only people he's grown kind of close to being Mana Walker and his dog Alan, who unfortunately, due to being abused by shitbag clown Kazumov, has passed away and was recently buried by Mana and Red Arm. Mana reiterating what he said earlier, that his tears have dried up, but now extending it to show that he wasn't taking it all the best he could, and instead was close to breaking down. Him panicking with sadness and fear because if he gets really sad, if he grieves for Alan, it will come. Having to remind himself that due to the spiral of life, the earlier mentioned helix, it's okay, he'll see Alan again, don't cry, it's all good, just don't cry. Mana almost slipping back into his Earl mode until the Red Arm boy walked over to him, crying at the unfair death over an innocent dog when Mana himself was not able. From here, the two would become close, Mana trying his best to make Red Arm smile to show him that despite the hell he's stuck growing up in, and the broken past that Mana comes from, there is still beauty in this world. There are still things to smile about and live for. And of course, unfortunately, this happiness doesn't last. The Freak King himself, Apocryphos, strolling into the circus, ready to shake things up as usual. And in the background, watching the two dancing Pierrot clowns, are both Sensei Cross and the queen of the Noah herself, Road. The two having a conversation that, adds a mix to the plot that, despite being teased, is now hard confirming that the world has seemingly been ended once before. Like possibly even more so than the Great Flood. A giant glowing cross towering over a destroyed metropolitan city that Cross Marion refers to as the Pillar, wondering why the Noah are so terrified of it, and hinting that the Earl himself can possibly become whatever this Pillar is, accusing Road and Noah for the way Mana ended up, claiming they are only posing as his family, and it's their fault he's become the man he is now, sending Road's Noah memory into a total frenzy. The millennium-long grudge in her soul tearing out of her body and distorting her mind and face at just the simple mention of the word pillar, claiming that the Noah have seen the end of the world, and their holy quest will never stop. Now, real shit, this right here, besides every other mystery in the plot, is what I have a feeling will go on to be the biggest bombshell in D.Gray-Man. Because honestly, stepping back and looking at these terms in the scale of a manga, the Pillar sure sounds like a final boss calamity, and knowing it involves future timelines and reincarnation, brother, I am so goddamn curious as to what's going on here. The Noah, the Holy War, and the legacy of hatred the Earl is out to fulfill, at the end of the day, is the driving core of the plot. And with this, it feels to me like Hoshino has finally created a real major drop of knowledge that will eventually lead into an overall climax. But as of this script writing, we got nothing more. Things in the circus come to a close as Apocryphos' goof-ass convinces the entire troupe with his weird Innocence powers that it was Red Arm, not Kazumov, that killed the puppy Alan, and that the boy needs to be corrected. Mana and Red Arm coming back to the tents and being captured by the performers. Them blaming Red Arm for the death of Alan and going so far as to dig up the body. Both Red Arm and Mana seeing it and starting to break down, with Red Arm popping first and the innocence that's in his arm activating, becoming the huge anti-Akuma claw we know from the start of the series, rampaging against the bloodthirsty circus performers around him. It's all starting to fall apart, and the only person who can help Red Arm is the one friend he has, Mana. Him grabbing that red arm and doing his best to control him, to suppress that rage and to not bloody his hands in anger. Problem is, Mana has unknowingly come in contact with Nia, that soul being in Red Arm's body. And now Mana is breaking down just as fast as Red Arm, his mind completely breaking, and due to the total despair, summoning the Fat Man himself. The Earl has arrived with his Akuma, waving his hands and beginning the slaughter of everyone in the big top tent. Thankfully, the dude himself, Cross, judgment blasts his way into the scene and confronts the Earl, directly addressing him despite Mana still laying on the floor. The Earl getting angry and gnashing his teeth, but saying nothing and vanishing, which to me has some interesting implications. If Mana is the Earl and we've seen him both form the suit around himself and hop out just as easily, why was this spirit here? Why was Cross able to see it, to talk to and shoot it, with this Earl getting actually angry and leaving? We know Mana and Nia combined originally made up the Earl, but as to the being known as the Millennium Earl itself, who or what is it? Honestly, the same going for the Noah as well. What exactly are these long-living souls of pure hatred? At this point, who knows? But with the Earl subdued and everybody else dead, this leaves only Mana and Red Arm remaining. The boy going to hug Mana the next day, and Mana referring to the boy as Alan, even asking him where his tail went. Unfortunately, due to the extreme trauma from last night, Mana's mind has finally shattered. He's lost himself in himself, and after suffering day to day with this intense mental strain, it starts to wear his body down. Red Arm giving in and calling himself Alan, traveling with Mana until one day he quietly passed away while sleeping, both peacefully and pitifully. Alan's grief summoning the Earl and the story starting as we know it, with this ending the last fully completed arc of D.Gray-Man. The flashback capping off with the small team going on separate journeys. Kanda and his General Tidal heading back to find Mana's grave and digging it up, revealing that, of course, it's an empty coffin, while Johnny and Alan go to track down the mysterious mansion from all of Nia's memories. And now with the introduction of the Zoogle clan, an offshoot branch of the Bookmen, Alan is finally asked a major question. One that's been teased for a really long time now, but finally laying it down to the reader. Who is Alan Walker? We know he was the Red Arm boy that has no memories of his past before circus slavery. We know he's the host to the 14th Noah. We know his arm was already implanted with Innocence before even meeting Mana. And we know what we've seen him do throughout the plot. But what about before that? Why is the name Alan seemingly shared between him, the dog, and somebody else? An Alan whose age doesn't match up with the one we know. An Alan that both Cross and Nia himself worked with. And to find out about what to do next on this path, he must once again look to the past. The final page of the most recent chapter beginning a seemingly new flashback arc that will, hopefully, explain just what or who the hell Alan was, and possibly who the hell Cross Marion is also. The series standing here now with the future of where it will go completely wide open. So, with all of that said, recap and thoughts throughout, where do we stand now with D.Gray-Man? Where do we as fans go from here? Truthfully, at this literal moment, the plot is at one of its most crucial and important points. The full reveal of who Alan is possibly being right around the corner, along with major updates for Cross, Bookman, and maybe even Lavi attached along with it. And let me tell ya, being a caught up fan gives me feelings of both extreme happiness and total pain. We do have tons of info now about Nia and Mana, but we also have so many new questions too. What is the Pillar and why are the Noah obsessed with it? Why did it seem to be in a destroyed future full of skyscrapers? Where does Apocryphos come from, and who has the Heart of Innocence? What exactly is the Earl, the Noah? What is this holy war really about? And of course, what happened those 35 years ago? Why did the Earl vanish? What happened between the two brothers? And largely, who is the Campbell family really? Honestly, there's also probably plenty I'm forgetting. At this point, Hoshino has created a huge web of questions with only clues to go on. And at the current release rate, it could be a long time before those mysteries are concluded. At a fan event in 2023, she stated that she would like for the series to be about 50 volumes, and that the story in her mind was about halfway over. which, knowing it's taken 20 years for 28 total volumes, that's both one of the best and worst things I've ever heard. But with that said, in the beginning of each volume, the opening page is usually a photo of one of Hoshino's cats, the main one talked about being named Koro. Koro was a rescue, her adopting them 18 years prior to volume 28, and technically being the same age as D.Gray-Man, Koro being the Tim Campy to Hoshino's Alan. Unfortunately, as of that 28th volume's release, Koro had passed away, Hoshino now writing the story partially in Koro's memory, with Alan himself actually having to face the death of Tim Campy in the manga. But as she says here, just like Alan, she will keep walking in the memory of loved ones lost. And it's that mindset, that same drive and devotion to her creation that makes all of these characters feel so strong, so real, and so well developed. And I guess with that in mind, I can say with my whole heart and soul that D.Gray-Man is worth your time. It's worth the wait, it's worth the investment. With these 29-ish current volumes, while still not answering tons of the biggest questions in the series, the manga itself is strong enough to stand on its own from start to now. And even if it could be 2060 before we know what the truth of this holy war is, as long as I'm able, I'll still be standing here waiting for that next chapter to grace my eyes. Alright, okay, with all of that out of the way, the final two things I want to talk about are both of the anime and how you can experience the series today in 2024. And with that first point, the D.Gray-Man anime is fine. Lasting from 2006 to 08, the 103 episode anime made by TMS Entertainment is, by all means, a totally solidly average shonen anime. Back in 2014 to 15, during my big shonen anime binge watching phase, DGM was one of the few series not on Crunchyroll due to Funimation's rights to it. So while I did watch and fall in love with tons of anime that, stories completely aside, are kinda just mid-adaptations, things like Toriko and Hitman Reborn, and D.Gray-Man was one I never actually checked out until years later, after having already started the manga. And I thought it was dark. Like literally, both the official streaming Funimation version and torrents online. They were all in like 240p or some shit, and I legit couldn't make out what was happening on the screen. So I, dropped it. For this video, I did go back and thankfully find better quality versions and watch most of it. And my opinion overall is, it's solid, but like other anime that were adapting long-running shonen during the 2000s, it's as good as it is bad. Like if you've watched all of Bleach or Naruto, you kinda know what to expect. It does have a small chunk of filler episodes here and there that are alright, but nothing too special. One small 2-episode arc does adapt a light novel story involving Kanda and his early backstory, so that's cool. But past this, of course, there's the sequel series that released 8 years after the conclusion of the original anime, titled D.Gray-Man Hallowed, continuing where the original series had ended with a whole new animation style that was much more colorful and brighter than before. The episodes having a much quicker pace than the originals and wrapping up both the Alma Karma arc and the intermission point between that and Searching for AW, all within 16 total episodes. Now, in my opinion, there's something kind of off about Hallowed. Where the original 06 series had its issues and shonen anime-isms, I still think it really captured that feel of D.Gray-Man correctly. But with Hallowed, there's just something weird about it that I can't put my finger on. Like, it's not bad, but it's also not good. Like, it's this weird, uncanny middle for me. Now, as most of the online fans know, This season was an all-around controversial production, because outside of the mixed reactions from fans, Hoshino herself had taken to Instagram to criticize a very infamous promo image. This goofy looking thing right here. To which she shortly after had deleted the post, made a follow-up, and then deleted her whole Instagram account. So to break it down, the common belief from people online is Hoshino had the Hallowed anime cancelled because of this image, and she hated the idea of shipping Alan and Kanda. First of all, most mangaka have almost no say to what happens in their anime. Sure, they may consult with the staff, oversee merchandise, or whatever. But end of the day, the publisher holds the rights and can do fuck all whatever they want with it. Shout out American Death Note. Now this does exclude things like Kubo and Bleach 1000 Year Blood War or Oda and current One Piece. Those are obviously special cases. So when you see people online say Hoshino had it cancelled, yeah, sure as hell don't believe that. Now, that doesn't mean she didn't have words to say about that promo image, and honestly, yeah, I get it. In her eyes, this image did have a yaoi vibe between Alan and Kanda, something that based on their personalities in the actual story would not be the case. And with this being an official promo for the anime and not just a fan image, it kind of does betray how the characters would act. But that aside, this image kinda looks like shit. Look at these noses, Kanda's weird abs and body position. Nah, this shit is kind of just amateur for what D.Gray-Man is, and I think she was just as critical of that aspect as well. This did cause some backlash and her Instagram was deleted, but now a few years later she's back online and posting cute cat pics again, so everything's all good. With that said, I think Hallowed's ending with no continuation comes from the fact that the series itself is on a slow release schedule. And when this anime was created, hiatuses between chapters were not uncommon. So it probably just made sense to end it there instead of doing filler, I guess. It is what it is, and honestly, may be for the best. As of 2024, both of these anime are on Crunchyroll and can be found easily online. So you have the option if you want. Ain't never gonna beat this art style in my eyes though. And lastly, as to how you can read the series, it still has a largely in-print run by Viz here in America, both in single volumes and 3-in-1 omnibus. Unfortunately though, these aren't the good Viz 3-in-1s. I have some of the Bleach releases from years ago, and bro, that paper quality is so thin that it's some ass. I can never recommend these. Oh, and also, Hoshino's Noche art book also has an official release here in the West, and it's usually super affordable, so I recommend that as well. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video wasn't just too much of like a total recap. Where DGM has ran for so long, I just want to both interest new people, but also rehook them older fans. And the best way I could think to do it was straight out tell you how fantastic this series is. Even if it probably won't end officially within the next 20 years. See you next time, hit the buttons below, shout out to my Patreons, you guys are the best, I love each of you individually. Have a happy and fun Halloween, and of course, I'll see you next time.